Without further delay, we are pleased to introduce your new manager.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and yes, it is finally that wonderful time of year where the Premier League will be returning. Today I'm going to be sharing my Premier League predictions with you all, as well as individual awards like top goal scorer, player of the season and signing of the season. But before we actually get into my personal predictions, I did run a channel poll recently and gathered your guys' votes and opinions on who you think would win the Premier League this season, and as you can see, 55% of the 11 of you said Manchester City. So let's begin today's video by talking about the clubs who I believe will be relegated. Starting at 20th with Luton Town. It's a pretty unfortunate situation because they have just come up and they've never been in the Premier League before. But I think that will be the thing to kind of haunt them throughout the season. They haven't got any Premier League experience on their squad, and to be honest, although I think they've actually made some pretty smart signings so far, I don't see them staying up. I'm sorry, Luton fans. So the next two teams I'm actually going to cover in the same segment here. 19th I've gone Wolves and 18th I've gone Fulham. Now I did make a video a few weeks ago, or maybe around a month ago, suggesting how I think these teams will both struggle, and I genuinely think they will. So with Wolves, obviously they've lost big players like João Moutinho, he's now a free agent, Ruben Neves, Nathan Collins. They've got big money problems and have actually yet really invested in a remotely decent player in the window. And with Fulham, I suppose you can kind of say the same thing. A lot of their players are touted to go to Saudi Arabia, which is unfortunate. They've still, of course, got quality, especially in the middle of the pitch with João Palhinha. I believe he had the most tackles of any player in the Premier League last season, but in pre-season, I believe he picked up an injury. So that could obviously cause Fulham to have a bit of a rocky start. Obviously, last season, they were expected to concede the most amount of goals as well, so I don't know, I really don't see it going well for Fulham this season, and I believe both Fulham and Wolves alongside Luton will be relegated. Now we're covering 17th position to 13th position, so I've gone Brentford 17th, Burnley 16th, Everton 15th, Sheffield United 14th, and Nottingham Forest 13th. Now I don't want to spend too much time on this segment because a lot of these teams kind of belong down here anyways, but obviously I'm going to address the elephant in the room, Brentford. Now, I did mention earlier on while talking about Fulham and Wolves that I did make a video around a month ago saying which kind of teams I believed would struggle in the Premier League this season, and Brentford did, of course, feature in that video. I think the loss of Ivan Toney due to the suspension and the potential loss of David Raya, who, by the way, is a fantastic goalkeeper, and although they've replaced him with Mark Flecken and they've got Strakosha as backup, and they have signed Nathan Collins at the back, to be fair, which I must say is a decent signing, but I do just, without those goals that Ivan Toney provided, it's hard to really see them playing the way they're so used to playing under Thomas Frank. Obviously, they have options because their front line is good. Let's be honest, they've got Yoane Wissa, who's more than capable of scoring goals, and Mbeumo, who is more than capable of scoring goals as well. I don't want to disrespect those players, but we just have to think about the team as a whole and how different it will be without those big players like Toney and David Raya. So moving on to 12th position to 8th position now, I have gone for West Ham United 12th, Bournemouth 11th, Crystal Palace 10th, Brighton 9th and Spurs 8th. Now, once again, a lot of these players sort of belong in this sort of positional bracket, so I'm not going to go too far into that, but I do just quickly want to address Spurs and Brighton. Now, for me, Brighton is a very difficult one to predict this season because, of course, they've made good signings and they've had a lot of incomings, but they've had big outgoings as well. And, of course, they are playing European football next season, which, to be fair, is, I don't think, something they've ever done within the history of the football club. So I'm just wondering how that's going to take its toll on the first team, and then obviously them having to mix that up with Premier League games and kind of just juggling and rotating the squad. I think it might become a bit of a problem. Now with Spurs, at the time of recording this video, I do believe Harry Kane will leave and Spurs will cash in. The issue with this is they've left themselves very little time to replace Harry Kane. Of course, they always have Richarlison, but that means, you know, with him getting more game time, they might have to switch up the system. And obviously, they've got Postecoglou, who is, yet to prove himself as a Premier League manager because he's yet to play a Premier League game. So there will just be a whole lot of adapting going on for Spurs this season, and I think, of course, they will suffer for that reason. One thing I do just quickly want to mention about Spurs, though, is obviously they aren't in any European competitions this season, so that could actually end up being a blessing in disguise for them. So for the Conference League spot in 7th, I have gone Aston Villa because they really do mean business this season. I mean, they've managed to attract players like Pau Torres. Obviously, Diego Carlos is back from injury now, so it's time to see what he can do. And they've also attracted Diaby as well, which still blows my mind. So in the Europa League spots, I've gone 6th for Man United and Newcastle 5th. I have been really impressed by the business that both clubs have done, especially in the case of signings like Mason Mount for Man United and Tonali Newcastle, and Harvey Barnes as well. What a signing that was. I do believe that Man United will get Europa League. I think Højlund will struggle in his first season, and there is absolutely no way that Man United are going to get justification for the money they've spent on him, but it will be a first season at the end of the day, so you have to give a player time. I think Man United fans can be happy with 6th though, because they've still got a lot to do. Moving into our top 4 now, we have Arsenal, Chelsea and Liverpool. Now, I'm not going to lie, I've heard a lot of people bigging up Arsenal this season. I do think they've still got a lot of recurring issues, but obviously we will see how that, kind of transpires throughout the season. They do have undoubtedly a quality young squad, and I'm not going to deny that. And I think that last season we've seen them play great football. And Arsenal have just won the Community Shield, which is obviously a great start to their season. I do believe with teams like Chelsea back on the rise now, though, and a rebuild going on there, and a rebuild in Liverpool's midfield as well, I just think it's very hard for Arsenal to replicate what they replicated last season. I think I get a lot of stick for Chelsea being 3rd and Liverpool being 2nd, but I really have a lot of faith in Jurgen Klopp and getting this Liverpool team moving again, especially with an absolutely brilliant rebuild, in my opinion, in the midfield. We still need a bit more, but so far it's really not looking bad. And with Chelsea placing 3rd, I just think with Pochettino at the helm, they are going to be a totally different football club. You guessed it, I've gone for Man City as champions once again. Now, although they've undoubtedly lost quality in the squad like Mahrez and Gundogan, I'm not going to lie, they still have bags and bags full of talent and are just really exciting to watch. And that's all that needs to be said for this club, really. I'm aware this is a long video and you're probably really sick and tired of hearing me talk now, but we're really quickly going to run through my personal award predictions for this season. So, as my top goal scorer and player of the season, I have gone Erling Haaland and I've set him to score 28 goals. So as my signing of the season, it was really hard to pick a player, but I've gone Mason Mount with Jurrien Timber in a close second.
Without further delay, we are pleased to introduce your new manager.